Welcome back to LightFair Live with Get a Grip on Lighting. I'm here with Greg Eric and Al Uszynski. We want to tell you guys that this show is sponsored by the Big Easy Greg Eric.
Keystone.
Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. Right down the road, just down here on the left, you'll find their booth. Beautiful big booth.
I think the biggest booth here.
It might be. It might be. Go to the Big Easy, KeystoneTech.com. Al, Inside.Lighting. You're taking over with the news, buddy.
You know, yeah, we've grown quite a bit, and it's been a fun ride, man. So we're you guys are in the media, I'm in the media, and here we are covering LightFair 2025. And I must say, guys, we're recording this the morning of May 6th, the day after Cinco de Mayo. You're both very vibrant and energetic, so props to you guys.
That's because I didn't stop. I just kept going.
Still going.
But you started in 2020.
You know, I launched the site quietly, anonymously in 2016, but I really started putting full-time effort into it in 2020, yes.
Yeah, and since then you've been, what have been the ups and downs of being the editor of Inside.Lighting? There's got to be some tension there. There's got to be some friction and some good times. What have been the biggest ups and downs with those two things?
Yeah, I would say I don't necessarily consider myself to be some entrepreneur like these, Silicon Valley types, but it's a small business.
Sure.
And I think the first up and down that I would go for is the imposter syndrome that I first had. I'm a broken down factory guy, engineering degree and sales and management in my career, and all of a sudden now I'm typing articles about the lighting industry, and frankly, I hated English class in high school. I didn't read Wuthering Heights. I read the Cliff Notes and reported on that.
Right.
So now I have to kind of communicate through writing. So I kind of had imposter syndrome, but now I'm experienced. I have 5 years of journalism experience.
Sure.
And the other part has just been the ups. Has just been the tremendous growth. You guys have a fairly large audience as well, and you don't get a lot of people just coming out of the woodwork complimenting you on a great episode 382, but you do hear some of the other constructive criticism. But it's when I come to places like this and other industry events, and you get the people who just recognize Greg and recognize Michael as they get a grip guys, and that happens to me as well. And that's kind of been uplifting to get that feedback from the people on the street that we're doing something that matters. We're bringing the stories in a informative, analytical, and insightful way, along with a little fun sprinkled in. And that's been the ride over the last 5 years. We're North America's largest lighting industry news and info media site, and onward and upward, guys.
Totally. When I read your article today about LightFair, I actually read articles sometimes.
Yeah.
I read Al's. Can you kind of recap that? I know reading it is best, but tell us your thoughts on LightFair and what you were writing about with that.
Yeah. So I think the one you're referring to is why this year feels different. Is
Yes.
that the one you're referring to? Okay, great. So this year does feel different. And for anyone who's been to LightFair in the past, especially the 2010s when it was peaking and it was over 20,000 and then over 25,000 and then over 27,000 people, it was like homecoming weekend combined with just technology advancements that most companies couldn't keep up with. These smaller booths on the perimeter that became bigger year after year because they were these newcomers that they weren't bogged down by HID and fluorescent technology. They were just jumping right into LEDs, and now there's some prominent names. And so that was the heyday. That was the 2010s, the peak of our industry as far as rapid acceleration and technology growth. And now the pandemic, we all know what happened there, and now 2021, October was the first LightFair out of the gates. That's a mulligan. 22 was here in Vegas. We had a couple big names. 23 was New York City, and it's feeling like it's lost much of its momentum. So we're now expected to be sub 10,000 attendees, maybe closer to 7,000 or 8,000 attendees here. But, a trade show isn't just what you make of it, rather isn't just by the numbers, it's what you make of it.
Yeah.
And Greg, the point that I really felt that started that article was that I'm personally connected to LightFair. I went to my first LightFair in the 90s. I loved it. It was like a cathedral of lighting. It was intimidating because I was still 20-something years old. And it's such an important part. And now I struggle with maybe having to write an article that shares some of the good and the bad of what we might be experiencing here. I wouldn't say bad, but some of the constructive feedback from exhibitors and attendees.
I don't think anyone would argue with you that LightFair needs to carve out a new path, a new vision for what it is. I don't think anyone would argue about that. But I think you might, find arguments with. I think LightFair is absolutely needed, Greg.
Totally. And that's the thing that bothers me. There are people that are like, oh, it's not what it used to be, so I'm just not going to go. You should be here. I'm pointing at the camera. What are you doing back home? Get here and build it up again. Help build it. Because to your point, it is personal. Like when I started in lighting, I came here and I saw what it was all about, and it was amazing, and it was awesome. And it is still amazing and awesome. It can be, but we need everybody here. So don't stay home anymore. Get to the show. I'm telling you.
And, you talked a little bit about the Inside.Lighting business. What is the news business about? Like, what do you provide for people in the lighting business? Do you provide information? Are you providing stories? What is it that Inside Lighting seeking to do?
Yeah, I think we've worked it out over the years. There were times where I was experimenting or maybe not having a full vision of what Inside Lighting is about. But these days we report on the relevant news. We're not going to just spit out a story about webinars and doing a book report on some presentation that we see here. We really want to provide the newsworthy information, but also provide an analytical spin to it. So this is where my broken down factory guy aspect comes into play. I'll give you an example. Last month, biggest lighting company in North America, Acuity, they acquired a sports lighting company. And their press release, it just mentioned that, hey, they bought this sports lighting company and here's where it fits in and life goes on. But the bigger part of that story, to me, wasn't that Acuity bought a sports lighting company. It was who sold it. And that wasn't in their press release. That was not in their press release. And this is a good PR strategy. So this is not a knock on Acuity. When Encelium was sold to Legrand years ago, same thing. I mean, they don't say who they buy it from. They just say, hey, it's part of our team now.
Yeah.
And the insight there is that this guy in upstate New York, Joe Casper, this was his second exit. He started up a LED sports lighting company many moons ago and sold that to Cooper. And then this is his encore, and he sold this one to Acuity. So from that standpoint, that was a great story, and I think we're the only one outside of a local paper in upstate New York that told that story a week later now. And that's some of the insights that we try to bring. We also like to sprinkle in, some local flair and some little humor from time to time, like another article we wrote about LightFair. We worked in a reference to the Office Space, the movie, and we do things like that. So we like to have fun, but mostly provide insights and analysis that you might not be able to get outside of just these random press releases that are pasted all over the internet.
Yeah, I got to ask an opinion of LightFair since we're here.
Yeah.
The darkness.
Yeah.
What's your thought on this? So it's as
Dark
people
show.
out here, as you're walking around, it's not lit. The ceiling is not lit.
Right.
So it's dark.
Yes.
But the booths are bright. What do you think?
So I think it starts when you walk in, or when you come up the escalator to level 2 where we are, and then you see that there's that dark vibe. It's kind of part, Space Mountain Q area, or maybe Hakkasan nightclub without the bottle service, and then you walk by a video wall. So they're trying to be, I think, this dynamic. They're trying to attract lighting designers who appreciate some of these nuances.
Sure.
And then you walk in here, and now the illumination in almost all the booths is the booth fixtures themselves.
Sure.
And for a 10 by 10 or a 20 by 10 or that works fine, but there's a couple large booths here, and the exhibitors knew this, by the way, so this wasn't a surprise to them.
Yeah.
But there's a couple that have some major dark spots in some of the large footprints, so those min-max ratios might be off, Michael Colligan. But in any case, it's an interesting vibe. I like it. I'm not sure if that alone or the experience I mentioned in the registration area is going to want to cause me to come back to LightFair just for that, but it just adds to the mood.
Yep.
Just a final point on before Greg interrupted me there.
That's what I do.
The journalism. I like that Inside Lighting does journalism, and a lot of people don't realize that there's a big difference between being a reporter and being a journalist. And I love the way you always ask for the other side. I love the way that you always reach out to the other people, ask them for their comments, and you investigate the stories. So, Al Uszynski, thank you for being part of this industry, and thank you for joining us here at LightFair and Get a Grip on Lighting.
Hey, you guys do a great job. If you don't subscribe and listen to all the pods, there's always some nuggets of interesting stuff that comes up. So hats off to you guys. Thanks for involving me, and have a happy LightFair.
Thank you.
Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneEtech.com for the Big Easy.